Salient Energy is developing novel zinc-ion batteries as an alternative to conventional lithium-ion batteries. We have the co-founder Ryan with us. Thanks for joining in, Ryan.
My pleasure.
So, Ryan, just to begin things, so could you please break it down for us so that we know what exactly are you building at Salient Energy, and what's the problem that you are trying to solve there?
Yeah. So starting with the problem, we know basically the first things we have to do to address climate change, and that is electric vehicles
Right.
and clean electricity.
Yeah.
To do that, the world needs to deploy uh, trillions of batteries. About as many batteries as have ever been sold need to be deployed over the next decade and a bit to make sure that we don't destroy the planet.
Right.
Um, and we are nowhere close to that scale.
Mhm.
The battery that the entire world is depending on, lithium-ion, um, its raw materials are actually quite scarce and they're pretty geographically limited. So um, most lithium-ion raw materials uh, are processed by China,
Okay.
and there's basically no production here in North America.
Okay.
Um, Not to mention the fact that lithium-ion batteries are also, pretty expensive. They're getting better, and they catch fire and explode. So, as battery scientists, what we decided to focus on is saying, okay, it seems pretty risky to bet the entire world's future on just one battery technology, especially one that has pretty serious supply chain concerns.
Right.
So, can we make a new battery
Mhm.
um, that even if it's heavier than lithium ion, would be more appropriate for storing renewable energy. So for about half of the batteries that need to be deployed to solve climate change, those batteries are going to be used to store solar and wind power whenever the sun's not shining and wind's not blowing.
Right.
Uh, we discovered that we could do that with a zinc and water-based battery.
Okay.
It's uses the raw materials it uses are far more abundant. The current annual production in North America of zinc would be enough to meet the total world's demand,
Mhm.
and it's intrinsically safe. And because it uses the exact same manufacturing as lithium ion, along with cheaper raw materials, it is a lower cost technology. So. Yeah, we're a cheaper, safer, longer lasting battery that doesn't have any of the supply chain concerns that lithium ion does.
Okay. And is has zinc ion been used before in the batteries, or are you the first guys to explore that option?
So zinc, the very first battery ever invented was a zinc battery,
Okay.
and disposable batteries are zinc batteries.
Mhm.
What we have done that's new is we found a new way to make a zinc battery
Okay.
that enables it to be recharged thousands of times, and that's new.
Okay.
Kind of the traditional approach to zinc batteries, they either have limited rechargeability, so at best a few hundred times,
Right.
or there are these really, really big systems. So there's another zinc battery that can be recharged well enough.
Mhm.
It's 10 times the size of ours. So not doesn't really have as good of a cost basis
Okay.
as we will.
Okay. Okay. Understood. And so, as this is a new technology, so who are like those first customers that you are targeting, or the early adopters of this technology that you're seeing?
Yeah, so there's a few markets. You're right, it's a new technology. We can't exactly compete with the scale of lithium ion to start,
Right.
not until we build our own gigafactories. So we are first targeting people who just really, really need a safe battery.
Okay.
Um, our battery's water-based, it can't catch fire. So there are some applications where the risk of fire needs to be actually zero instead of, your lithium-ion batteries probably won't catch fire, but if they do, it's catastrophic.
Right.
So those are our first markets.
Okay. Okay. And have you had any customers till now? You're looking for it.
Yep. So we have demonstration projects agreed to. We haven't yet delivered on them, but yeah.
Okay. What motivated you to like start Salient Energy? Did you have like a background in batteries, or were you just curious about it and wanted to do something in this field?
Um, So when I graduated high school, my purpose in life was to become rich. So I studied business and I went and I got a co-op job in investment banking.
Got it.
Uh, and then realized I made a huge mistake because I don't like money enough to work
Okay.
80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And in the process of my quarter life crisis, I decided that I wanted to focus on problems that I could get passionate about. And when I was just kind of looking at what problems I cared most about, climate change came up. And the two biggest sources of emissions are first electricity production, then EV production. And at the time, I was kind of deciding to go back to school to study something. Batteries were still kind of the least mature technology that is needed for both the EV transition and clean electricity transition. So I said, well, it's clear that if I want to use technology to solve climate change, batteries is a great field to study. And so I bet it all on batteries, and I still think it's going to pay off. We'll see. It's early, but yeah.
Okay. And does your team comprise of like technical people who have been in this field for a long time?
Yep. Everyone's a scientist or engineer. I'm the only person who's non-technical.
Okay. And you're focused on what as markets, you're focused on North America for now, or you're looking into other markets as well?
Yeah, we're looking into them. EU is really interesting because they're pretty woke when it comes to climate change.
Right.
But the simple fact is, like, as a Canadian-based company, it's just always going to be easier to sell to North American customers.
Right, right. And so clean tech is something that is, the it's on the rise. Like the support from the ecosystem and from people in general, that's increasing. So have you seen that as well for Salient Energy? How has the support been for you guys?
It's been great. So when we first started the company,
Mm.
um, the kind of first wave of battery investments was crashing down. So a lot of the biggest bets, they were going bankrupt. A lot of people had lost a lot of money. So
Okay.
there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm for what we were doing.
Right,
There was a lot of like, oh, it sounds like what you're doing is important, but it's going to take forever and take so much money and it probably won't work. And we're not super interested.
right.
Um, I think I think people are starting to get excited about clean tech again. I think we're starting to see exits that are really exciting, even some battery companies that are going public for billions. So that enthusiasm is creeping up again. I still think as a sector, uh, deep technology, something like developing a battery, is hard to make work with the traditional venture model. But
Hmm.
fortunately, what we're seeing now is just there's tons of government support,
Okay.
and that really does make the difference. So, um, and it's targeted government support, at least now for batteries, and so that really helps.
Okay. Okay. And I think it has been what 4 years now since you have been running Salient Energy.
Mhm.
So what are some of the your biggest challenges have been in this field, especially being in the clean tech sector, or if I put it otherwise, if someone is just getting started in the clean tech space, what would your advice be there?
I think so. We're clean tech, but I would also like really highlight that I'd say
Mhm.
we're deep tech. So
Okay,
the value of our company, there's not a lot of market risk. If we make a better battery, people are going to buy it.
right.
It's the risks in our battery are technical and or in our company are mostly technical in nature. And as a CEO of a company like that, you just have to really know the subject matter. So I studied battery science for 5 years and I worked at battery startups, and I still don't consider myself a battery scientist,
Mhm.
but I know enough to know what the competitors are doing. I know enough to make a realistic plan of how we can grow.
Okay.
And I think you need that level of background if you're going to become kind of a leader in deep tech. In terms of the biggest challenges of clean tech, well, I'll relate it back to being science-focused companies. Um, there aren't a lot of science-focused investors in Canada. Most of the people who've made their money haven't made their money by making bets on science, so it's not something they're familiar with.
Right.
So it's always going to be a little difficult to get investors to buy in because they basically just have to trust you, and you
Mhm.
have to find some way of communicating your progress that is exciting for them.
Okay. And I believe it is capital intensive. You need a lot of capital infusion for research and product development.
Well, it can be, but I think this is part of the lesson learned in battery development is like in 2010, people would raise $50 million based off of lab results, and then they would try to do their production scale up at the same time as their R&D,
Okay.
and their burn rate would explode. And then once they inevitably ran into scientific problems, they the kind of cost of delays was so high that it would wreck them. But I think what we're seeing now in the next wave of these deep tech companies is being really capital efficient, and I think that makes a big difference.
Okay. Okay. So are you taking a phased approach of like finishing research and development and then scaling your products, or is it all going in parallel?
Uh, yeah, I mean we are being capital efficient. We're doing as much as we can in parallel as possible because speed still matters. But um, yeah, we were being, I think, more capital efficient than battery companies in the past, and that's also enabled by our technology. So unlike other batteries, we use the same manufacturing as lithium ion. So a major part of our development is just kind of already solved for us.
Okay, okay. Well, Ryan, thanks a lot for sharing all this. And lastly, I just wanted to know what lies ahead for Salient Energy. Like, if you think of, say, next 2 to 3 years, what are the plans for Salient Energy?
Yeah, so over the next 2 to 3 years, we'll be doing our pilot scale manufacturing.
Okay.
So actually running a plant, showing that this technology can be manufactured at scale using the same techniques and equipment that are already scaled up for lithium ion.
Mm-hmm.
That will be very important to prove.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have our first projects installed in the field. So really showing that we've made a true substitute for lithium ion. And then while that's happening, I mean, I hope that um, that governments around the world continue to realize the urgency of climate change
Yeah.
and that the necessary investments for clean tech happen. Because if we follow the science, then literally trillions of dollars have to be spent revolutionizing the grid over the next decade,
Mm-hmm.
and we got to start that now. And so for our company, it means proving that we're a good fit, proving that we're scalable. It means over the next 2 to 3 years we'll have a solution the world urgently needs. But if we kind of drop the ball on climate action and put it off for another decade, then I don't think we have as good of a shot. But also um, that doesn't matter as much for us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, completely understand. Thanks a lot, Ryan. Like, this is wonderful. I didn't know much about batteries, but from what I have read about you guys and our conversation, I know a bit more now. And yeah, thanks a lot again for sharing these insights and for starting something, like which is inclined towards improving the health of the planet. So thanks a lot again for joining us.
Cool. And to whoever's watching, I mean, this problem is huge. It may be even too big to solve, but we need all hands on deck to do it. So
Yeah.
whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever your skill set, this is a big enough problem that it needs your work. So think about it.